Howdy y'all, TheGooseFathr here. Wanted to do a quick update. Looks like we got another round of patch notes on this Wednesday. And it looks like it's entirely exclusive to Mac changes. Some nerfs, some buffs. I'll go over them as fast as I can here. Apothecary looks like they increased the regeneration on this one. This is the one that, like, the more you freeze, slow, whatever, it spams this item, and this item just gives you regen for the fight. Nobody was really using this, so they're kind of buffing it to see if you'll, you know, bite. I'm still not sure it's very good. A large item just for regen seems a little weak, but maybe. Athenor, they keep having to nerf this one over and over again. It's now at silver instead of bronze, and so you can't get it right away. I don't think that there's a large item anymore that you can get at bronze. I'd have to double check that. Um, and it is reload adjacent potions instead of reload 1, 2, 3, or 4 potions. So it's just adjacent. It will only ever reload 2. It also means that you can't reload 2 potions that are on the other side of the boiling flask, so they can't get multicast out of the 2 potions that are being reloaded. So that's a pretty big nerf. And then to compensate, they give you a ton more burn damage for the potions that you're reloading. So has a much more specific use case now instead of just the general run all potions build. So that's interesting. And then they changed it from it having multicast to the adjacent potions having multicast for the shiny enchantment. Dragon's Breath, they reduced the cooldown of this one. This one just gains fire damage every time you use adjacent items. It's too slow for anyone to use because you can get way more fire damage on items that are just permanent in 7 seconds. So I don't know that bringing it down to 10 is going to do anything. It's still kind of useless compared to all the very powerful burn Mac items available. Floor Spike, much needed change. This is part of a suite of changes to the Poppy Field build that looks like it's aimed at bringing it in line. They made Floor Spike 1 second faster, but reduced its charge effect from 2 seconds to 1 second. So this will make it considerably slower on the whole. That's a pretty good change. That item got way too fast. Goop Flail, its natural multicast at Shiny went from having 3 more multi on top of the 3 it already had, which was cracked because this and Moose Cane, it just, like, you got hit 6 times, you were dead. It was nuts. They dropped that down to 1. Leeches, they reduced the cooldown down to 8. Don't sleep on leeches. Leeches is actually a very good day 1, day 2 monster. You use it with a couple. First of all, you need to pick it up whenever you see it day 1, day 2 anyway, because we have very little friends. We have no food, we have no tools. No food and no toys. And so leeches is the only way to activate the tiny furry monster encounter early, which is we're desperately need so that we can get into level 3 by day 2 so that we can stay kind of near everybody in hit points when you're playing Mac. So you wanted to buy leeches anyway just because it was a friend, but running poison next to leeches day 1, day 2 is actually a lot of recovery. And now it's a little bit faster. Its big problem was it was a lot of delay, but you could spam a lot of poison by the time it went off, and people can't kill you that fast day 1, day 2. So this was a pretty powerful way to stay in the fight. It was a pretty good day 1, day 2 item. It's even better now. I'm not sure it goes late any more than it used to, but that's still a great change. Library, they just changed a bunch of the enchantments. The most useless enchantment trigger effect is like the first time you fall below half health. And so they did a round of changing it to when you use a non-weapon, which is pretty powerful. I think Library is kind of awesome now. I always like the idea of it. You slow all weapons, you speed up your non-weapons, and now the enchants are going to give you power every time you use a non-weapon. I think that this is going to get some cracked builds. This is going to get some play. It's going to be really fun. It probably has a couple of broken builds with it that are maybe enchant dependent, which means that we won't see it rampant in the meta like some of the other broken builds, but it's going to be very powerful. Magic Carpet, they brought down from 7 to 6. Magic Carpet was good relative to a lot of other Mac stuff for day 1 through 3 ish. You use this with the crit potions and maybe letter opener, hit a couple of crits, and then magic carpet gets down to 1 second and becomes kind of what I like to call rugladdle, where it's just like hitting every second. So this is even easier to do now. Yeah, that's great. Philosopher's Stone gets the relic tag. I am not sure why Philosopher's Stone needs any help at all, except that I like that maybe it'll force some people to sell it. It won't, but maybe some people sell it and throw it into the vat because fuck that item. Plague Glaive just got its enchants drastically reduced. Freeze one item for 6 seconds is stupid, or haste 3 for 3 is dumb. 1 for 1 on a large item is very brutally bad though, so I'm not entirely sure what this thing was being used for that it needed such a heavy treatment. Apparently something, because 1 for 1 on a large is a very bad enchant, so not sure what's happening there. Poppy Field, they reduced all the enchantments. So the enchantments were kind of the large item effect. So you would be slowing for 3, freezing for 2, hasting for 3, which was insane. All of them are down to 1 second now. And then the heal and burn are both based on the effect of the poison. I thought that was the case, honestly. I think I had a burn enchant. I didn't know it was going at 0, so I'm not sure about that. But anyway, they just kind of regulated Poppy's enchant so they weren't super busted like they were before. They're still pretty busted because they're every time you use a weapon and you're on a weapon spam build, but at least they're not like lasting forever. So it's the second part of reducing Poppy Field's power. Recycle Bin, also a bunch of changes to the enchants, just bringing them down to the old 1 second. Anything that triggers when something else happens, when some other item gets used, should probably be at the 1 second mark, because those are infinitely repeatable effects a lot of times. And then they also had an interesting, the shield, heal, fiery, toxic. Instead of the boring flat numbers, which are kind of unusable most of the time, but in this case really broken because you were spamming potions like mad. Now it's equal to the regen of the item, and you gain regen as you use potions. So the power of these will scale, and they start low. So that's a super fascinating kind of effect. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that is. I think it'll be even stronger on poison and burn. I think it'll be weaker on heal and shield, because heal and shield were helpful early, but they're not particularly good enchants on this anyway, so that's fine. Runic Daggers and Runic Double Bow both lost a second. Looks like they're trying to pull down the lifesteal numbers to make the lifesteal builds a bit of a thing. I don't think they're going to be successful with this. Those items are still way too slow and way too weak, if you ask me. That's fine, though. They can keep buffing those. I would like that archetype to have a build that's actually viable. It doesn't right now. Satchel, they got the cooldown reduction as you level 876, as you level the thing up. Remember, if you put on CDR at 8 seconds and then you lower it to 7, the effect of the 8-second CDR is brought as it goes. So all this means is if you stack your CDR early, it gets even more cooldown reduction as you level the item up. So hold on to, spam your cooldown reduction from your feathers and whatnot on this thing before you use it. I'm not sure how powerful this is yet. I'm kind of curious. So rather than having the reload rank up by virtue of this thing's level, the reload is static, and its cast speed comes down, which is interesting. And potion reloads just got nerfed because of what they did to Athanor, sorry. So this might be usable because of that. And then your flat regen that you build outside of combat when you buy a potion is increased. So this becomes an out-of-combat scaling item. It already was, but that's more of the way that you will scale it instead of scaling it in the fight by reloading. Secret Formula came down 2 seconds at both tiers. This has a micro build that no one was really using, and so yeah, it's interesting. I think it'll maybe see some play now. It's still just very, very slow. And Mac is just too fast to mess with this stuff right now. He's got too many goodies to do really quickly, and he has low hit points, so he can't wait around. So still don't think this will get too much play, but there are a couple builds that make sense on. Smelling salts, again, this is just one of those things that, like, it's a small item. It shouldn't have really long, or really big amounts for its enchant. So they just brought the enchants down. Spider Mace, this is the third nerf to the Poppy Field build, and probably the biggest one. 2-second increase on the cast time. They brought the flat damage down by a little bit at every level. And then the enchants on it have been halved for the freeze, slow, and haste, which were the really brutal ones. So, yeah, I think this build is still super strong. They seem to be erring on the side of, like, not murdering a build, which is good. They used to just murder it and bring it back up. Now they're just kind of like slowly lowering it, so that's fine. This build's going to be fine. Might not be as insanely oppressive because it was a triple hit. It's really hard to tell when something's triple hit like this how much it affects, but these are all pretty small hits. So we'll have to see. I think you'll still see a ton of this, especially since people are familiar with it and it's fairly easy to put together. But I think it's no longer going to be like the late Juggernaut that it was. The real problem with this is, like, it won as soon as you got it, and you could move into this build on day 8 and still make it all the way to day 13, 14, 15 with it. Maybe not 15, but you can still, like, play really late with the build because it was so strong. I think it makes more sense that it's more of an early build and falls off more, which they might be closer to. Staff of the Moose, they brought down its cooldown. They made its damage flat at the gold level, which might sound nuts to you because Staff of the Moose was strong enough. And then the first time you fall below half health, you take no damage for an increasing amount of time and an increasing amount of regeneration based on the level. So it's like a massive buff to an already crazy broken item, and now your weapons have damage equal to your regen instead of 3 times your regen. So this is where the nerf came in, is just having the regen not scale. I think this thing is still cracked. I think this is cracked. Honestly, Staff of the Moose hit so hard that, like, you would do a little bit of spam early, like when you pick this thing up at silver on day 2, like, it's a one-shot. And so you just had to do shenanigans with it. And now it's a one-shot in 10 seconds on day 2. I don't know, man. I think that this is still pretty powerful. It means you're not going to get the massive Staff of the Moose day 14 boards that are just like infinite regen, infinite damage, one-shotting, whatever. It'll be a lot harder to scale this thing long-term, but the mid-game of this item is, I think, way more powerful. So we might see this running a bit of a muck days 4 through like 7 or 8. Tomb of Gehenna just got an Obsidian enchant. First time you fall below half health, deal 120. The least exciting enchants in the world are when you fall below half health. And for a tiny amount of flat damage is even worse. So why? I don't know why. Viper Cane got general buffs but an increase in cooldown. So its potion is up a little bit, or its poison is equal to 15 or 25% of its damage for the fight, and its regen is equal to 15 to 25%. So they added 5% at both levels of the amount of poison and regen it's giving based on its damage to other items. They just made it take longer to get into effect. So I think the idea is to generally stay at the same power level, but to slow down its combat effectiveness so that you couldn't get this on weapons that are swinging at the 5-second mark and get and get out of control that way. Also with hasting and whatnot. So it just makes the effect of this adding to stuff to get that early big one shot a little bit slower. I'm not sure it's going to change the way this weapon used, because you usually use this with Moose, which is considerably slower than this thing. What it does do, though, is it keeps this from proccing twice inside of Moose's range, now that Moose is down to 13 seconds. I think that was one of the important things of this change, now that Moose is down to 10 seconds. Because if you were able to proc this twice before Moose went off, it would maybe get a little bit cracked. Not sure. We'll see. And then finally, Flame Dancer, your burn. This is just a... this is a change to the skill that you get from the Dervish guy who has the 2 fiery blades. That skill sucked. It was 2% at bronze. You hated getting it. You would always just skip it. It now actually scales a decent amount, so if you're running a fire build, you might actually pick this thing up. So yeah, it's a monster skill. It's slightly fractionally usable now, so that's cool. That's it. I wanted to just get through those really quickly. I know there's a couple of you that don't troll the Reddits and whatnot and actually get this information from me, which is super cool. So I want to just make sure that I get it to you quickly in case you don't have access any other way. The link to this document, to the How Bazaar patch notes, will be in the video description below, so you can find it there. Thanks a bunch. Hopefully Mac is slightly more in tune. I would like to see what the next broken build is now that Poppyfield is probably a little bit more manageable, and we shall see. Yeah, and also I want to see if Salamander pops off even harder in the early day. So thanks a bunch for watching. I will see you in the Bazaar.